Hello, Bulldog. What's up, you guys? Hey, Abigail, Music Man. You wait a lifetime to meet someone who understands you, accepts you as you are. At the end, you find that someone all along has been you. Guys, do me a favor and share the live. If you know anyone who wants to hang out and read a book, or who was here reading the book with us previously, who'd like to finish the book with us. To learn anything, you must put aside the safety of your ignorance. Ooh, I've always liked that one. No one does anything uncharacteristic of who they are. From time to time, it's fun to close your eyes and in that dark say to yourself, I am the sorcerer, and when I open my eyes, I shall see a world that I have created, and for which only I and I alone am completely responsible. Slowly then, eyelids open, like curtains lifting stage center, and sure enough, there's your world, just the way you built it. My friends, we are going to be finishing Illusions. Here, I will flip as I normally do so you guys can see the thing. I like that one, right, Avery? That was a good one. Are we shenaniganing? We are definitely shenaniganing. We are shenaniganing with the book, Illusions. And I have the accompanying Messiah's Handbook that I promised to read out of if you guys so desire. But we are on the last leg of Illusions. Yes, Hawk, because I do not kowtow to other people's expectations of the way that I should look. I mean, obviously, look at this shit. I'm wearing something from like the 80s, early 90s era. My hair is in some funky sort of whatever. My ears are stretching from the weight of my metal hanging off of them. And you know, I imagine your mother liked you better before you became so judgmental of other people. Or maybe it's your mother who taught you that. Thanks, G. Just hanging. We are reading Illusions. Aw, Catkin, thank you, baby. Yeah, I'm just playing along with our silly troll that comes in, and it's really adorable to me. Again, when people come in judgmental or casting judgment or saying how we should or should do things the way that they expect us to, it is always a confession of their own insecurity, and it's really adorable to watch. To me, it's a lot like seeing a toddler jump up and down in a room full of adults, begging for attention, screaming and being absurd just to get attention. They do anything they possibly can to get attention. And it's usually, again, it's indicative of low self-esteem. It's indicative of poor self-image. Someone who is confident in themselves doesn't need to tear down others or to judge others or to tell others how they should or shouldn't be, because in discovering our own authenticity, in learning to love ourselves, we learn to accept all things about ourselves, even the things that we judge. And when we do that, we we no longer need to cast judgment on others, because it doesn't change who we are, and who they are doesn't change how we feel. We are no longer affected. We are no longer the victim of our situation and the victim of our own judgment and our own biases. So, but just like a toddler, when they don't know how to quiet down, then we just go ahead and give them, what, the pacifier, I guess? The mute button is equivalent to the pacifier. Here you go, kid. You're welcome to come in and play as long as everybody's getting along and playing together well, you know? That one kid in the sandbox who's rubbing sand on other people's faces is going to have to be removed. My favorite quote that I've been sitting with recently, and I've you know, many times in my life I've heard it, read it somewhere, but it's been coming up a lot lately. It's a paradox. The mark of a tolerant society is to be intolerant of intolerance. The mark of a tolerant society is to be intolerant of intolerance. So, the pacifier, Avery. See? Lamira, that is why I wore it today. We have an amazing thrift store, a couple of thrift stores here in town. We have a really small town in Oregon that I live in. And so I get the coolest stuff. You should see the nightgowns that I have, the like shirts and stuff and coats. Like I feel like stuff in that store is from when I was a kid, 80s, right? 80s, 90s, like the coolest shit, some awesome, beautiful skirts. I don't know, maybe I should just create an online store with all the cool shit that I find in thrift stores because it's where it's at. That's where it's at. Okay, you guys. You guys want to get through the last bit of illusions with me? And then we will read some from the Messiah's Handbook. Okay, so if you are just joining us, please note that the replays for the other sections that we've read are on YouTube at Move With Change. If you haven't followed me on YouTube, please go follow me on YouTube. I do more than just reading books. We do meditations and yoga and general shenanigans. But the replays are always there, and I often go live there too on YouTube. So please go follow me over there. I am moving a bunch of my stuff off of TikTok, focusing more on YouTube because YouTube's not hiding my content. Only TikTok is. Ooh, nefarious, you know, talking about the body's self-healing properties and how to find inner stillness and how to not be manipulated by the powers that be. Ooh, nefarious content, I tell you. Okay, so let's see, where were we last here? The last quote we left off with is, your conscience is the measure of the honesty of your selfishness. Awesome, thank you, Avery. Listen to it carefully. Your consciousness is the measure of the honesty of your selfishness. Listen to it carefully. Okay, so the last chapter, the last thing they went through was Donald and Richard were walking through town, and Richard was asking about going through a wall, walking through walls, right? Can you walk through walls? And Donald was playing hardball with him, trying to get him to formulate the question in the way that gave the answer, right? And he did successfully. And then Donald Shimoda, of course, just turned 90 degrees and walked through a wall and left Richard right there. So we had that funny little moment. But Donald seems to be getting more and more frustrated with Richard over Richard's timing, right? How he's learning and how he's formulating questions. Hey, Gigi. Gary, yes. I don't care what they say about me, even if it's true. See, what was that? What was that one? That was written back here. It was written back here. Come on. Hold on, I like that one a lot. Hold on. No, I want that one. Oh, maybe we read it in the thing. Yeah, we did. We read it in the Messiah's Handbook. The one about be proud of everything that is ever said and spoken about you, even if it's not true, something like that. Okay. Hey, Jack, how are you? The truth is there is no truth. That's true. That's the truth, and I'm sticking to it. We got circles going on. Okay. There's the front of the book. We're going to get through our last couple of chapters, okay? We are all free to do whatever we want to do, he said that night. Isn't that simple, clean, and clear? Isn't that a great way to run a universe? Almost. You forgot a pretty important part. Oh? We are all free to do what we want to do as long as we don't hurt somebody else, I chided. I know you meant that, but you ought to say what you mean. There was a sudden shambling sound in the dark, and I looked at him quickly. Did you hear that? Yep, sounds like somebody. He got up, walked into the dark. He laughed suddenly, said a name I couldn't catch. It's okay, I heard him say. No, we'd be glad to have you. No need you standing around. Come on, you're welcome, really. The voice was heavily accented, not quite Russian or Czech, more Transylvanian. Thank you. I do not wish to impose myself upon your evening. The man he brought with him to the firelight was, well, he was unusual to find in a Midwest night. A small, lean, wolf-like fellow, frightening to the eye, dressed in evening clothes, a black cape lined in red satin. He was uncomfortable in the light. I was passing by, he said. The field is a shortcut to my house. It is? Shimoda did not believe the man. He knew he was lying, and at the same time did all he could to keep from laughing out loud. I hoped to understand before long. Make yourself comfortable, I said. Can we help you at all? I didn't really feel that helpful, but he was so shrinking. I did want him to be at ease, if he could. He looked on me with a desperate smile that turned me to ice. Yes, you can help me. I need this very much, or I would not ask. May I drink your blood? Just some. It is my food. I need human blood. Maybe it was the accent. He didn't know English that well, or I didn't understand his words. But I was on my feet quicker than I had been in many a month, hay-flying into the fire from my quickness. The man stepped back. I am generally harmless, but I'm not a small person, and I could have looked threatening. He turned his head away. Sir, I am sorry. I am sorry. Please forget that I said anything about blood. But you see... What are you saying? I was the more fierce because I was scared. What in the hell are you saying, mister? I don't know what you are. Are you some kind of vamp? Shimoda cut me off before I could say the word. Richard, our guest was talking and you interrupted. Please go ahead, sir. My friend is a little hasty. Donald, I said, this guy, be quiet. That surprised me so much that I was quiet and looked a sort of terrified question at the man, caught from his native darkness into our firelight. Please to understand. I did not choose to be born a vampire. It is unfortunate. I do not have many friends, but I must have a certain small amount of fresh blood every night, or I writhe in terrible pain longer than that without it, and I cannot live. Please, I will be deeply hurt. I will die if you do not allow me to suck your blood. Just a small amount. More than a pint I do not need. He advanced a step toward me, licking his lips, thinking that Shimoda somehow controlled me and would make me submit. One more step and there will be blood, all right, mister. You touch me and you die. I wouldn't have killed him, but I did want to tie him up, at least, before we talked much more. He must have believed me because he stopped and sighed. He turned to Shimoda. You have made your point? I think so. Thank you. The vampire looked up at me and smiled, completely at ease, enjoying himself hugely. An actor on stage when the show is over. "I won't drink your blood, Richard," he said in a perfectly friendly English, no accent at all. "I won't drink your blood, Richard." As I watched, he faded as though he was turning out his own light. In 5 seconds, he had disappeared. Shimoda sat down again by the fire. "Am I ever glad you don't mean what you say?" Do not trust him. Do not trust him. I was still trembling with adrenaline, ready for my fight with a monster. "Dawn, I'm not sure I'm built for this. Maybe you'd better tell me what's going on. Like, for instance, what was that?" That was a vampire from Transylvania," he said, his words thicker than the creature's own. "Or, to be more precise, that was a thought form of a vampire from Transylvania. If you ever want to make a point, you think somebody isn't listening, whip them up a little thought form to demonstrate what you mean. Do you think I overdid him? With the cape and the fangs and the accent like that? Was he too scary for you?" The cape was first class, Dawn. But that was the most stereotyped, outlandish. I wasn't scared at all. He sighed. "Oh well, but you got the point at least. And that's what matters." What point?" "Richard, in being so fierce toward my vampire, you were doing what you wanted to do, even though you thought it was going to hurt somebody else. Even though he told you he'd be hurt if he was going to suck my blood. Which is what we do to anyone when we tell them we'll be hurt if they don't live our way." I was quiet for a long time, thinking about that. I had always believed that we are free to do as we please, only if we don't hurt another. And this didn't fit. There was something missing. "The thing that puzzles you," he said, "is an accepted saying that happens to be impossible. The phrase, hurt somebody else. We choose ourselves to be hurt or not to be hurt, no matter what. Us who decides, nobody else. My vampire told you he'd be hurt if you didn't let him. That's his decision to be hurt. That's his choice. What you do about it is your decision, your choice. Give him blood, ignore him, tie him up, drive a stake of holy through his heart. If he doesn't want the holy stake, he's free to resist in whatever way he wants. It goes on and on, choices and choices and choices." When you look at it that way. "Listen," he said, "it's important. We are all free to do whatever we want to do." Every person, all the events of your life, are there because you have drawn them there. What you choose to do with them is up to you. Don't you get lonely, Dawn? I was at the cafe in Ryerson, Ohio. It was at the cafe in Ryerson, Ohio that it occurred to me to ask him. "I'm surprised you'd..." "Shh," I said. "I haven't finished my question. Don't you ever get just a little lonely? What you think as..." "Wait. All these people, we see them just a few minutes. Once in a while, there's a face in the crowd, some lovely star-bright woman who makes me want to stay and say hello. Just be still and not moving and talk for a while. But she flies with me 10 minutes or so. She doesn't, and she's gone. And the next day, I'm off to Shelbyville, and I never see her again. That's lonely. But I guess I can't find lasting friends when I'm an unlasting one myself. He was quiet. Or can I? May I talk now? I think so, yes. The hamburgers in this place were wrapped half over in thin oiled paper. And when you unwrapped them, you got sesame seeds everywhere. Useless little things, but the hamburgers were good. He ate in silence for a long time, and so did I, wondering what he would say. Well, Richard, we're magnets, aren't we? Not magnets, we're iron, wrapped in copper wire. And whenever we want to magnetize ourselves, we can. Pour our inner voltage through the wire, we can attract whatever we want to attract. A magnet is not anxious about how it works. It is itself, and by its nature, it draws some things and leaves others untouched. I ate a potato chip and frowned at him. You left out one thing. How do I do it? You don't do anything. Cosmic law, remember? Like attracts like. Just be who you are, calm and clear and bright. Automatically, as we shine who we are, asking ourselves every minute, is this what I really want to do? Doing it only when we answer yes. Automatically, that turns away those who have nothing to learn from who we are and attracts those who do, and from whom we have to learn as well. But that takes a lot of faith, and meanwhile, you get pretty lonely. He looked at me strangely over his hamburger. Humbug on faith. Takes zero faith. What it takes is imagination. He swept the table between us clean, pushing salt and French fries out of the way, ketchup, forks, and knives, so that I wondered what was going to happen, what would be materialized before my very eyes. If you have imagination as a grain of a sesame seed, he said, herding an example seed to the middle of the clearing, all things are possible to you. I looked at the sesame seed and then at him. I wish you messiahs would get together and agree. I thought the thing was faith. When the world goes against me. Thank you guys for the gifts. No, I wanted to correct that when I was working. But it was a long uphill fight. 2,000 years ago, 5,000, they didn't have a word for imagination, and faith was the best that they could come up with for a pretty solemn bunch of followers. Also, they didn't have sesame seeds. In the field of all possibilities. I knew for a fact that they had sesame seeds, but I let this lie go past. I'm supposed to imagine this magnetizing. I imagine some lovely, wise, mystical lady appearing in a hayfield crowd in Tarragon, Illinois. I can do that, but that's all of that is. That's just my imagination. He looked despairingly to heaven, represented for the moment by the tin plate ceiling and cold lights of M and Edna's cafe. Just your imagination. Of course it's your imagination. This world is your imagination. Have you forgotten? Where your thinking is, there is your experience. A man thinks, so he is. That which I feared is come upon me. Think and grow rich. Creative visualization for fun and profit. How to find friends by being who you are. Your imagining doesn't change the is one whit. Doesn't affect reality at all. But we are talking about Warner Brothers worlds, MGM lifetimes, and every second of those are illusions and imaginations. All dreams with the symbols we waking dreamers conjure for ourselves. Amoeba! Nice! I love that synchronicity, huh? Amoeba, do you also have the Messiah's Handbook? This is an imperative companion to this. He lined his fork and knife as though he was building a bridge from his plate to mine. You wonder what your dreams say. Just as well you look at the things of your waking life and ask what they stand for. You with airplanes in your life every time you turn around. Well, Don, yes. I wished he would slow down, not pile this all on me at once. Mile a minute is too fast for new ideas. If you dreamed about airplanes, what would they mean to you? Well, freedom. Airplane dreams are escape and flight and setting myself free. How clear do you want it? The dream awake is the same. Your will to be free of all things that tie you back, routine, authority, boredom, gravity. What you haven't realized is that you're already free, and you always have been. If you had half the sesame seeds of this, you're already supreme lord of your magician's life. Only imagination. What are you saying? The waitress looked at him strangely from time to time, drying dishes, listening, puzzling over who this was. So you never get lonely, Dawn? I said. Unless I feel like it. I have friends on other dimensions that are around me from time to time. So do you. No, I mean on this dimension, this imaginary world. Show me what you mean. Give me a little miracle of the magnet. I do want to learn this. You show me, he said. To bring anything into your life, imagine that it's already there. Like what? Like my lovely lady? Anything. Not your lady. Something small at first. I'm supposed to practice now? Yes. Okay, a blue feather. He looked at me blankly. Richard, a blue feather. You said anything, not a lady, something little. He shrugged. Fine, a blue feather. Imagine the feather. Visualize it, every line of an edge of it, the tip, V-splits where it's torn, fluff around the quill, just for a minute. Then let it go. I closed my eyes for a minute and saw an image in my mind, 5 inches long, iridescent, blue to silver at the edges. A bright, clear feather floating there in the dark. Surround it with golden light if you want. That's a healing thing to help make it real, but it works in magnetizing too. I surrounded my feather in gold glow. Okay. That's it. Now you can open your eyes. I opened my eyes. Where's my feather? If you had it clear in your thought, it is even this moment, barreling down to you like a Mack truck. My feather? Like a Mack truck? Figuratively, Richard. All that afternoon, I looked for the feather to appear, and it didn't. It was evening, dinner time over a hot turkey sandwich, that I saw it. A picture and small print on the carton of milk. Packaged for Scott Dairies by Blue Feather Farms, Bryan, Ohio. Don! My feather! He looked and shrugged his shoulders. I thought you wanted an actual feather. Well, any feather for openers, don't you think? Did you see the feather all alone, or were you holding the feather in your hand? All alone. Well, that explains it. If you want to be with what you're magnetizing, you have to put yourself in the picture too. Sorry, I didn't say that. Gary, that's a fun topic, Mandela effect. Yes, there are some genuine Mandela effects. I am on the Berenstain Bears one. Now I can't remember how to say it. That one and... What's that song? What's the song one? Yeah, We Are the Champions of the World at the end, right? Yes, I have. I just recently heard I recently heard the Through the Loom one, and somebody actually went and dug up the previous stuff and actually found the actual, yeah, no. I grew up with Through the Loom too, so when I heard that one, I was like, baloney! There was always fruit in those chonies. Always. Okay. A spooky, strange feeling. It worked. I had consciously magnetized my first thing. Today, a feather, I said. Tomorrow, the world. Be careful, Richard, or you'll be sorry. The truth you speak has no past and no future. It is, and that's all it needs to be. I lay on my back under the fleet, wiping oil from the lower fuselage. Somehow the engine was throwing less oil now than it had thrown before. Shimoda flew one passenger, then came over and sat on the grass as I worked. Richard, how can you hope to impress the world when everybody else works for their living and you run around all irresponsible from day to day in your crazy biplane selling passenger rides? He was testing me again. There's a question you are going to get more than once. Well, Donald, part 1. I do not exist to impress the world. I exist to live my life in a way that will make me happy. Okay. Part 2? Part 2. Everybody else is free to do whatever they feel like doing for a living. Part 3. Responsible is able to respond. Able to answer for the way we choose to live. There's only one person we have to answer to, of course, and that is ourselves, Dawn said, replying for the imaginary crowd of seekers sitting around. We don't even have to answer to ourselves if we don't feel like it. There's nothing wrong with being irresponsible. Most of us find it more interesting to know why we act as we do, why we make our choices just so, whether we choose to watch a bird or step on an ant or work for money at something we'd rather not be doing. I winced a little. Is that too long an answer? He nodded. Way too long. Gary, I have a really interesting... Okay, all right. The center of the universe. During a meditation, I caught this little vision of... it's going to be so hard to explain. I'm going to have to save it. Hold on. I'm going to have to save it. The path to enlightenment, the point of enlightenment, the point of alignment with alignment is when we essentially turn inside out and implode into our own universe. There's a concept of this universe being a manifestation of an impulse, of a consciousness, of a sound. And there's even, I believe it's like Serafina, somebody female name that starts with an S. I don't know if you've ever heard these kinds of ideas before. But yeah, it all started at the center of the universe, yes. But ultimately, in our funny little subjective experience bubbles, we are essentially the center of our own universe, and everything in the macro universe is also in the micro universe, and inside out and outside in and up and down and constantly cycling in. But I actually have a little thing I drew about it when I got that in my meditation. Okay. Okay. How do you hope to impress the world? I rolled out from under the plane and rested for a while in the shade of the wings. How about I allow the world to live as it chooses, and I allow me to live as I choose? He threw a happy, proud smile at me. Spoken like a true Messiah. Simple, direct, quotable, and it doesn't answer the question unless somebody takes the time to think carefully about it. Try me some more. It was delicious to watch my own mind work when we did this. Master, he said, I want to be loved. I'm kind. I do unto others as I would have them do unto me, but I still don't have any friends and I'm all alone. How are you going to answer that one? Beats me, I said. I don't have the foggiest idea what to tell you. What? Just a little humor, Dawn. Liven up the evening. A little harmless change of pacer there. You'd best be plenty careful how you liven up the evenings. Problems are not jokes and games to the people who come to you, unless they are highly advanced themselves. And that sort know they're their own Messiah. You are being given the answers, so speak them out. Try that beats me stuff, and you'll see how fast a mob can burn a man at the stake. I drew myself up proudly. Seeker, thou comest to me for an answer, and unto thee I do answer. The golden rule doesn't work. How would you like to meet a masochist who did unto others as he would have them do unto him? Or a worshipper of the crocodile god who craves the honor of being thrown alive into the pit? Even the Samaritan who started the whole thing. What made him think that the man he found lying at the roadside wanted to have oil poured in his wounds? What if the man was using those quiet moments to heal himself, spiritually, enjoying the challenge of it? I sounded convincing to me. Hey, Osterberry, how are you? Even if the rule was changed to do unto others as they want to be done to, we can't know how anybody but ourselves wants to be done to. What the rule means, and how we apply it honestly, is this. Do unto others as you truly feel like doing unto others. Meet a masochist with this rule, and you do not have to flog him with his whip, simply because that is what he would want you to do unto him. Nor are you required to throw the worshipper to the crocodiles. I looked at him. Too wordy? As always, Richard, you're going to lose 90% of your audience unless you learn to keep it short. Hey, thank you for the gifts, friend. Well, what's wrong with losing 90% of my audience? I shot back at him. What's wrong with losing all my audience? I know what I know, and I talk what I talk. And if that's wrong, then that's just too bad. The airplane rides are $3 cash. You know what? Shimoda stood up, brushing the hay off his blue jeans. What? I said petulantly. You just graduated. How does it feel to be a master? Frustrating as hell. He looked at me with an infinitesimal smile. You get used to it, he said. Here is a test to find whether your mission on Earth is finished. If you're alive, it isn't. Hardware stores are always long places, shelves going back into forever. In Hayward Hardware, I had gone hunting back in the dim, needing 3/8 inch nuts and bolts and lock washers for the tail skid of the fleet. Shimoda browsed patiently as I looked, since, of course, he didn't need anything from a hardware store. The whole economy would collapse, I thought, if everybody was like him, making whatever they wanted out of thought forms and thin air, repairing things without parts or labor. At last, I found the half-dozen bolts I needed and journeyed with them back toward the counter where the owner had some soft music playing. Greensleeves, It was a melody that has haunted me happily since I was a boy, played now on a lute over some hidden sound system. Strange to find in a town of 400 souls. Turned out it was strange for Hayward, too, for it wasn't a sound system at all. The owner sat tilted back on his wooden stool at the counter and listened to the Messiah play notes on a cheap 6-string guitar from the sale shelf. It was a lovely sound, and I stood quiet there, paying my 73 cents and being haunted again by the tune. Perhaps it was the tinny quality of the cheap instrument, but it still sounded far misty other century England. Donald, that was beautiful. I didn't know you could play the guitar. I sneak, therefore I am. I sneak. Secret about me, if you ever get to meet me and spend time with me in person, I like to sneak around in the dark. I blame it on being the year of the rat, but I am like, ever since I was a child, I get this really giddy joy out of seeing how much I can do in complete and total darkness without bumping into anything and being able to find everything and everything I need. I don't know what's wrong with me, but it is something that I genuinely enjoy. And I do frequently. So if you ever spend the night at my house and I'm up in the dark, being super absurdly quiet, I'm just having some fun. Authenticity, man. That's where it's at. Noted. Yeah. Beware when you come to visit him. Okay. Oh yeah, I didn't know you could play guitar. You didn't? Then you think somebody could have walked up to Jesus the Christ and handed him a guitar and he would have said, "I can't play that thing." Would he have said that? Shimoda put the guitar back in its place and walked out into the sunlight with me. Or if somebody came by who spoke Russian or Persian, do you think any master worth his aura... That's my new thing. Any person worth their aura would not know what he was saying, or if he wanted to skin a D10 cat or fly an airplane, that he couldn't do it? So you really know all things, don't you? You do too, of course. I just know that I know all things. I could play the guitar like that? No, you would have your own style, different from mine. How do I do that? I wasn't going to run back and buy the guitar. I was just curious. Just give up all your inhibitions and all your beliefs that you can't play. Touch the thing as though it was part of your life, which it is, in some alternative lifetime. Know that it's all right for you to play it well, and let your non-conscious self take over your fingers and play. I had read something about that. Hypnotic learning, where students were told that they were masters of art, and so played and painted and wrote like master artists. That's a hard thing, Dawn, to let go of my knowing that I can't play guitar. Then it will be a hard thing for you to play the guitar. It will take years of practice before you give yourself permission to do it right. Before your self-conscious mind tells you that you have suffered enough to have earned the right to play well. Why didn't it take me long to learn how to fly? That's supposed to be hard, but I picked it up pretty fast. Did you want to fly? Nothing else mattered. More than anything, I was looking down on clouds and the chimney smoke in the mornings, going straight up into the calm, and I could see... Oh, I get your point. You're going to say, you never felt that way about guitars, did you? And this sinking feeling I have right now, Dawn, tells me that that is how you learn to fly. You just got into the travel air one day and you flew it. Never been up in an airplane before. My, you are intuitive. You didn't take the flying test for your license? No, wait. You don't even have a license, do you? A regular flying license? He looked at me strangely, the whisper of a smile, as though I had dared him to come up with a license and he knew that he could do it. You mean the piece of paper, Richard? That kind of license? Yes, the piece of paper. He didn't reach into his pocket or bring out his wallet. He just opened his right hand, and there was the flying license, as though he had been carrying it around, waiting for me to ask. It wasn't faded or bent, and I thought that 10 seconds ago it hadn't existed at all. But I took it and looked. It was an official pilot's license, Department of Transportation seal on it, Donald William Shimoda, with an Indiana address, licensed commercial pilot with ratings for single and multi-engine and land airplanes, instruments, and gliders. You don't have your seaplane ratings or helicopters? I'll have those if I need to have them, he said, so mysteriously that I burst out laughing before he did. The man sweeping the walk in front of the International Harvester place looked at us and smiled too. What about me? I said. I want my airline transport rating. You're going to have to forge your own licenses, Richard, he said. Thanks, Abigail. I recently got these. They're actually weights. I'm trying to stretch the smaller hole up top. Okay. We got like 1 or 2 chapters left. I think the last ones are like pretty short chapters. Okay. Chapter 17. We're almost there, you guys. We're almost to the big finale. On the Jeff Sykes radio talk show, I saw a Donald Shimoda I had never seen before. The show began at 9 p.m. and went till midnight. From a room no bigger than a watchmaker's, lined about with dials and knobs and racks of tape cartridge commercial spots. Sykes opened by asking if there wasn't something illegal about flying around the country in an ancient airplane, taking people for rides. The answer is no. There is nothing illegal about it. The planes are inspected as carefully as any jet transport. They are safer and stronger than most sheet metal modern airplanes, and all that's needed is a license and a farmer's permission. But Shimoda didn't say that. No one can stop us from doing what we want to do, Jeff, he said. Now that is quite true, but it had none of the tact that is called for when you are talking with a radio audience that is wondering what is going on. These airplanes flying around. A minute after he said that, the call director telephone began lighting up on Sykes' desk. We have a caller on line 1, Sykes says. Go ahead, ma'am. Am I on the air? Yes, ma'am, you are on the air, and our guest is Donald Shimoda, the airplane flyer. Go ahead, you're on the air. Well, I'd like to tell that fella that not everybody gets to do what they want to do, and that some people have to work for their living and hold down a little more responsibility than flying around with some carnival. The people who work for a living are just doing what they most want to do, Shimoda said, just as much as the people who play for a living. Scripture says, by the sweat of thy brow shalt thou earn thy bread, and in sorrow shalt thou eat of it. We're free to do that too if we want. Do your thing. I get so tired of people like you saying, do your thing. Oh, do your thing, do your thing. I get so tired of people like you saying, do your thing, do your thing. You let everybody run wild, and they'll destroy the world. They are destroying the world right now. Look at what's happening to the green living things and the oceans and rivers. She gave him 50 different openings to reply, and he ignored them all. It's okay if the world is destroyed, he said. There are 1,000 million other worlds for us to create and choose from. As long as people want planets, there will be planets to live on. That was hardly calculated to soothe the caller, and I looked at Shimoda, astonished. He was speaking from his viewpoint of perspectives over lots of lifetimes, learnings only a master can expect to recall. The caller was naturally assuming that the discussion had to do with the reality of this one world. Birth is the beginning and death is the end. He knew that. Why did he ignore it? Everything's okay, is it? The caller said into her telephone. There's no evil in this world, no sin going on all around us. That doesn't even bother you, does it? Nothing there to be bothered about, ma'am. We just see one little fleck of the whole that is life. And that one fleck is fake. Everything balances and nobody suffers, and nobody dies without their consent. Nobody does what they don't want to do. There is no good and there is no evil outside of what makes us happy and what makes us unhappy. None of it was making the lady on the phone any calmer. But she broke suddenly and simply said, "How do you know all these things that you say? How do you know that what you say is true?" Just when I had all the answers, someone changed all the questions. Gary. "I don't know they're true," he said. "I believe them because it's fun to believe them." I narrowed my eyes. He could have said that he had tried it and it works. The healings, the miracles, the practical living that made his thinking true and workable. But he didn't say that. Why? There was a reason. I held my eyes barely open, most of the room gray, just a blurred, fuzzy image of Shimoda leaning to talk into that microphone. He was saying all these things straight out, offering no choices, making no effort to help the poor listeners understand. Anybody who's ever mattered, anybody who's ever been happy, anybody who's ever given any gift into the world has been a divinely selfish soul, living his own best interests. No exceptions. It was a male caller next. While the evening fled by. "Selfish? Mister, do you know what the Antichrist is?" For a second, Shimoda smiled and relaxed in his chair. It was as if he knew the caller personally. "Perhaps you could tell me," he said. "Christ said that we have to live for our fellow man. Antichrist said, be selfish. Live for yourself and let other people go to hell. Or heaven, or wherever else they feel like going. You are dangerous. Do you know that, mister? What if everybody listened to you and did just whatever they feel like doing? What do you think would happen then?" "I think that this would probably be the happiest planet in this part of the galaxy," he said. "Mister, I am not sure that I want my children to hear what you were saying." "What is it that your children want to hear?" "If we are all free to do whatever we want to do, then I'm free to come out in that field with my shotgun and blow your fool head off." "Of course you're free to do that." There was a heavy click on the line. Somewhere in town, there was at least one angry man. The others, and the angry women too, were on the telephone. Every button on the machine was lit and flashing. It didn't have to go that way. He could have said the same things differently and ruffled no feathers at all. Sifting back over me was the same feeling I had in Troy. When the crowd broke and surrounded him, it was time. It was clearly time for us to be moving along. The handbook was no help there in the studio. In order to live free and happily, you must sacrifice boredom. It is not always an easy sacrifice. Jeff Sykes had told everybody who we were, that our airplanes were parked on John Thomas's hayfield on State 41, and that we slept nights under the wing. I felt these waves of anger from people frightened for their children's morality and for the future of the American way of life, and none of it made me too happy. There was a half hour left of the show, and it only got worse. "You know, mister, I think you're fake," said the next caller. "Of course I'm fake. We're all fakes. On this whole world, we're all pretending to be something that we're not. We are not bodies walking around. We are not atoms and molecules. We are unkillable, undestroyable ideas of the is, no matter how much we believe ourselves otherwise." He would have been the first to remind me that I was free to leave if I didn't like what he was saying. And he would have laughed at my fears of lynch mobs waiting with torches at the airplanes. Don't be dismayed at goodbyes. A farewell is necessary before you can meet again. And meeting again, after moments or lifetimes, is certain for those who are friends. Next noon, before the people came to fly, he stopped by my wing. "Remember what you said when you found my problem? That nobody would listen, no matter how many miracles I did?" "No." "Do you remember that time, Richard?" "Yeah, I remember that the time. You looked so lonely all of a sudden. I don't remember what I said." "You said that depending on people to care about what I say is depending on somebody else for my happiness. That's what I came here to learn. It doesn't matter whether I communicate or not. I chose this whole lifetime to share with anybody the way the world is put together, and I might as well have chosen it to say nothing at all. The is doesn't need me to tell anybody how it works." "That's obvious, Don. I could have told you that." "Thanks a lot. I find the one idea I lived this life to find, I finish a whole life's work." And he says, "That's obvious, Don." He was laughing, but he was sad too. And at the time, I couldn't tell why. The mark of your ignorance is the depth of your belief in injustice and tragedy. What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls a butterfly. The words in the handbook the day before were the only warning I had. 1 second there was the normal little crowd waiting to fly, his airplane taxiing in, stopping by them in a whirl of propeller wind, a casual good scene for me from the top wing of the fleet as I poured gas into the tank. The next second, there was a sound like a tire exploding, and the crowd itself exploded and ran. The tire on the Travel Air was untouched. The engine ticked over at idle as it had a moment before, but there was a foot-wide hole in the fabric under the pilot's cockpit, and Shimoda was pressed to the other side, head slammed down, his body still as sudden death. It took a few thousandths of a second for me to realize that Donald Shimoda had been shot. Another to drop the gas can and jump off the top wing running. It was like some movie script, some amateur acted play. A man with a shotgun running away with everybody else, close enough by me that I could have cut him with my saber. I remember now that I didn't care about him. I was not enraged or shocked or horrified. The only thing that mattered was to get to the cockpit of the Travel Air as fast as I could and talk with my friend. It looked as if he had been hit by a bomb. The left side of his body was all torn leather and cloth and meat and blood and a soggy mass of scarlet. His head was tilted down by the fuel primer knob at the right lower corner of the instrument panel, and I thought that if he had been wearing his shoulder harness, he wouldn't have been thrown forward like that. Don, are you okay? Fool's words. He opened his eyes and smiled. His own blood was sprayed wet across his face. Richard, what does it look like? I was enormously relieved to hear him talk. If he could talk, if he could think, he would be all right. Well, if I didn't know better, buddy, I'd say you had a bit of a problem. He didn't move, except just his head a little bit, and suddenly I was scared again. More by his stillness than by the mess and the blood. I didn't think you had enemies. I don't. That was a friend. Better not to have. Some hater bring all sorts of trouble into his life, murdering me. The seat and the side panels of the cockpit were running with blood. It would be a big job just to get the travel air clean again, although the airplane itself wasn't damaged badly. Did this have to happen, Don? No, he said faintly, barely breathing. But I think I like the drama. Well, let's get cracking. Heal yourself with the crowd that's coming. We got lots of flying to do. But as I was joking at him, and in spite of all his knowing and all his understanding of reality, my friend Donald Shimoda fell the last inch to the primer knob and died. There was a roaring in my ears. The world tilted, and I slid down the side of the torn fuselage into the wet, red grass. It felt as if the weight of the handbook in my pocket toppled me to my side, and as I hit the ground, it fell loose, wind slowly ruffling the pages. I picked it up listlessly. Is this how it ends? I thought. Is everything a master says just pretty words that can't save him from the first attack of some mad dog in a farmer's field? I had to read 3 times before I could believe these were the words on the page. Everything in this book may be wrong. By autumn, I had flown south with the warm air. Good fields were few, but the crowds got bigger all the time. People had always liked to fly in the biplane, and these days more of them were staying to talk and to toast marshmallows over my campfire. Once in a while, somebody who hadn't really been much sick said they felt better for the talking. And the people next day would look at me strangely, move closer, curious. More than once I flew away early. No miracles happened, although the fleet was running better than ever she had, and on less gas. She had stopped throwing oil, stopped killing bugs on a propeller and windscreen. The colder air, no doubt, or the little fellas getting smart enough to dodge. Still, one river of time had stopped for me that summer noon when Shimoda had been shot. It was the ending, an ending I could neither believe nor understand. It was stalled there, and I lived it 1,000 times again, hoping it might somehow change. It never did. What was I supposed to learn that day? one night in late October, after I got scared and left a crowd in Mississippi. I came down in a little empty place just big enough to land my fleet. Once again, before I slept, I thought back to that last moment. Why did he die? There was no reason for it. If what he said was true, there was no one now to talk to with as we had talked. No one to learn from, no one to stalk and attack with my words, no one to sharpen my new bright mind against myself. Yes, but I wasn't half the fun that Shimoda had been, who taught me by keeping me always off balance with his spiritual karate. Thinking this, I slept, and sleeping, dreamed. He was kneeling on the grass of a meadow, his back to me, patching the hole in the side of the travel air where the shotgun blast had been. There was a roll of grade A aircraft fabric and a can of butyrate dope by his knee. I knew that I was dreaming, and I knew also that this was real. Dawn! He stood slowly and turned to face me, smiling at my sorrow and my joy. Hi, fella, he said. I couldn't see for tears. There is no dying. There is no dying at all. And this man was my friend. Donald, you're alive. What are you trying to do? I ran and threw my arms around him, and he was real. I could feel the leather of his flying jacket crush his arms inside it. Hi, he said. Do you mind? What I am trying to do is patch this hole here. I was so glad to see him, nothing was impossible. With dope and fabric? I said. With dope and fabric you're trying to fix? You don't do it that way. You see it perfect, already done. And as I said the words, I passed my hand like a screen in front of the ragged, bloody hole, and when my hand moved by, the hole was gone, and there was just pure, mirror-painted airplane left, seamless fabric from nose to tail. So that's how you do it, he said, his dark eyes proud of the slow learner who had made good at last as a mental mechanic. I didn't find it strange in the dream. That was the way to do the job. There was a morning fire by the wing and a frying pan balanced over it. You're cooking something, Don. You know, I've never seen you cook anything. What you got? What do you got? Pan bread, he said, matter-of-factly. The one last thing I want to do in your life is show you how this is done. He cut 2 pieces with his pocket knife and handed one to me. The flavor is still with me as I write. The flavor of sawdust and old library paste, warmed in lard. What do you think? He said. Don, the Phantom's Revenge, he grinned at me. I made it with plaster. He put his part back into the pan. To remind you, if you ever want to move somebody to learn, do it with your knowing and not with your pan bread, okay? No! Love me! Love my pan bread! It's the stuff of life, Dawn! Very well, but I guarantee your first supper with anybody is gonna be your last if you feed them that stuff. We laughed and we were quiet, and I looked at him in the silence. Don, you're all right, aren't you? You expect me to be dead? Come on now, Richard. And this is not a dream. I won't forget seeing you now. No, this is a dream. It's a different space-time, and any different space-time is a dream for a good, sane earthling, which you are going to be for a while yet. But you will remember, and that will change your thinking and your life. Will I see you again? Are you coming back? I don't think so. I want to get beyond times and spaces. I already am, as a matter of fact. But there is this link between us, between you and me, and the others of our family. You get stopped by some problem, hold it in your head, and go to sleep, and we'll meet here by the airplane and talk about it, if you want. Dawn, what? Why the shotgun? Why did that happen? I didn't see any power and glory in getting your heart blown out by a shotgun. He sat down in the grass by the wing. Since I was not a front page messiah, Richard, I didn't have to prove anything to anybody. I didn't have and since you need the practice in being unflustered by appearances and unsaddened by them, he added heavily, you could use some gory appearances for your training. And fun for me too. Dying is like diving into a deep lake on a hot day. There's the shock of that sharp, cold change, the pain of it for a second, and then accepting is a swim in reality. But after so many times, even the shock wears off. After a long moment, he stood. Only a few people are interested in what you have to say, but that's all right. You don't tell the quality of a master by the size of his crowds. Remember. Dawn, I'll try, I promise, but I'll run away forever as soon as I stop having fun with the job. Nobody touched the Traveler, but its propeller turned. Its engine pouted cold blue smoke, and the rich sound of it filled the meadow. Promise accepted, but he looked at me and smiled as if he didn't understand me. Accepted, but what? Speak, words, tell me, what's wrong? You don't like crowds, he said. Not pulling at me, no. I like talk and ideas back and forth, but the worship thing you went through and the dependence, I trust you're not asking me. I've already run away. Maybe I'm just dumb, Richard, and maybe I don't see something obvious that you see very well. And if I don't see it, will you please tell me? But what is wrong with writing it down on paper? Is there a rule that a messiah can't write what he thinks is true, the things that have been fun for him, that work for him, and then maybe if people don't like what he says, instead of shooting him, they can burn his words, hit the ashes with a stick. And if they do like it, they can read the words another time, or write them on a refrigerator door, or play with whatever ideas make sense to them. Is there something wrong with writing? But maybe I'm just dumb. In a book? Why not? Do you know how much work? I promised never to write another book, another word in my life again. Oh, sorry, he said. There you have it. I didn't know that. He stepped on the lower wing of the airplane and then into the cockpit. Well, see you around. Hang in there and all that. Don't let the crowds get to you. You don't want to write it. You're sure? Never, I said. Never another word. He shrugged and pulled on his flying gloves, pressed the throttle forward, and the sound of the engine burst and swirled around me until I woke under the wing of the fleet with the echoes of the dream still in my ears. I was alone. The field was silent, as green autumn snow soft over the dawn of the world. And then, for the fun of it, before I was fully awake, I reached for my journal and began to write, one Messiah in a world of others, about my friend. There was a master come unto the earth, born in the holy land of Indiana. Hey Ricky, hey Zephyr, how you guys doing? That's it. That's the entirety. Blackbird singing in the dead of night. Alright. Words from the Messiah's Handbook, anybody? So remember, if you want to watch the replays of reading this book, of Illusions, or of Jonathan Livingston Seagull, you can find them on YouTube at Move a Change. If you do me a favor and go follow me on YouTube at Move a Change, I'm trying to cultivate that channel a little bit more. Yep. But for now, Messiah's Handbook. Grit, hey, how are you? One of my favorites too. One of my favorites too. I love Richard Bach's books. If you have not read Richard Bach, I really suggest picking up any of his books. But to be honest, there are, if you were going to ask, I'd say start with Jonathan Livingston Seagull. Move on. Honestly, do them like in order that he wrote them. It's really, really, really good. One was spectacular. Before you read one, read Bridge Across Forever. But again, the way he wrote them, like the order in which the chronology of his books is really a great way to read them. Because he writes about his journey and his insights, right, as he moves through his life. So they get more depth and profound as he goes through them. But Bridge Across Forever is where he is the story of how he met his wife. And then one is this beautiful epic story, the adventure that they go on together. You read them all, you think? Yeah, I know. That's what I thought too. But now he's got new ones, things like Hypnotizing Maria, and he's got this one called the Ferret Chronicles, like a whole series called the Ferret Chronicles. Running from Safety, I think, was the last one that I read, and that was a good decade ago, maybe. Anybody want Messiah's Handbook bits? Yeah, they're all fiction. They're all fiction category. Is the category that they are, but they are based on real life events or versions of real life or different versions of real life events. Running from Safety as well. Yeah. So these are not, yes, they are fiction, but this is a person who is writing about his experiences into a fiction story or twisting them into a fiction story and his insights and his deeper understandings and musings and whatnot. He's really good at turning profound ideas into a playful story that you can read as simply as a fiction playful story, or you can read it again and again and again and again, and there's always a little more depth in there. I've heard of Dan Millman as well, but I haven't read any, I don't think. Guarantee for a difficult and happy lifetime. 1. Find what you love to do more than anything else in all the world. 2. Do it, no matter what stands in your way. 3. Give the gifts of what you learned from love to others who care enough to ask. Ah, you're very welcome, Ricky. Your favorite line from the handbook is the very last one. Oh, yeah. The same thing at the end of the book. Yeah. Oh, I guess it wasn't at the very end of the book, right? The very end of the book, and this one says, everything in this book may be wrong. I tattooed the word paradox on my belly many years ago. It doesn't look as silly as that sounds. Because of things like this. Because of the paradoxical nature of reality. The dualistic and non-dualistic. The micro and macro. The reflection within the reflection. The inception, right? The dream within a dream within a dream within a dream, and how deep into those dreams do we really go, and how far out of those dreams can we come, and how many layers do we... Everything I see and know about my reality is my reality, and yet at the same time it is not even close to what reality really is. But my reality is the only reality that I can experience unless I somehow find my way out of the illusion. If I could turn back time... I was such a chaotic little child at like between 6 and 8. Man, 7 was big for me. 7 was when I started having reoccurring dreams of a past life. 7 was when I started to have visions and direct conversations with God and with Christ and with angels and things like that. I had experiences before that I didn't really understand, where I had been removed from my body, taken out of my body and held by angels and then put back into my body. Until after 7, when I started having those conversations more directly, and then I realized that I was being protected. I was being put through some really horrific experiences in my early years, because there were gifts in them. There were lessons in them for me. But for some reason, somehow, I didn't need to experience it fully. Hey, babe.
Hey, Mama.
I don't know. A gift, a blessing. I felt like the universe has always been loud enough. The universe has always been, okay, here's the message, and I'm going to give it to you just loud enough for you to hear it, but not loud enough for it to break you. If you think you're breaking, you're not, then you're not hearing it. Oh, they quoted Illusions in The Expanse. No, I don't think I've seen it. I actually have been thinking, Ricky, that I should be, that I need to share more of my story. You know, you guys know some things in the sense that, you know, who I am now and some of where I've been and what brought me here. I talk about my education and experience in, you know, the things that I teach and the things that I share, but I haven't shared with you guys the real stories as to what put me on this path, why I found myself on this path, and why I continue to fall back to this path. Because every single time I deviate away from it, it's like I'm swimming upstream. What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the master calls the butterfly. Mm-hmm. It's a very powerful thing. It is. And I know that there's you know, something to be said for people feeling like, I don't know. Yeah, when you hear somebody tell a story of something that you've been through too, right? It creates that kind of, somebody understands me. Somebody else has been through it too. And I've been through some crazy fucking shit. I just don't know how to put it together like a series. Actually, I do. And I'll tell you, actually, you know what? So I am moving all of my stuff over to Patreon. So you guys can find me at Patreon, on patreon.com @MoveWithChange. Please go over there and find me. Actually, I don't think there's an @ it's patreon.com/MoveWithChange. All of my membership tiers are there. We do now have a public Discord space. So instead of using this as like a little like chat space, we have a public Discord now that I will be posting the link for, so that anybody and everybody who wants to come join the public side of that Discord can be there. But on the Patreon, there's a blog section, and I'm going to start using that blog section to start telling some of those stories. I already have 1 or 2 there. So even if you don't purchase a membership level, go join for free over at Patreon so you can catch the blog, because I will be posting other stuff there too. And if you're on that mailing list, I'll give you updates on things. And if you're in the Discord, we can have more direct interaction rather than, you know, fighting the algorithm on this stuff. So start at the beginning. When you get to the end, stop. That's the thing. There is no end. There is no end. And I have always found that, so I've tried to write down my stories. I used to keep journals, and then I found myself carrying a stack of like 20 fucking journals around with me. And I was like, this is too heavy. I'm not literally carrying the weight of my past. So I burnt them all. But a lot of times these stories only come out in conversation. So they end up being all over the place. But I'll start chronologizing, putting them all together. See, but that's the thing, is I love to tell a story more so than writing a story. But maybe I could write them and then also read them. But anyway, I'll start telling it. it's going to start coming out. The story needs to start coming out because I do need to share these things because it makes a difference. It makes a difference to know where I've come from, and then for me to say, and from all of that, this is where I am now. It makes it's a much bigger difference than, yeah.
Can we go home now?
Yeah, you ready to go get groceries?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I maybe have some pizza on the way?
Yeah, sometimes we do. Ricky, have a hard time. You know, I'm grateful that you were able to share and felt comfortable sharing. You want one of these? Here, Ricky. I got one for you. Before you'll change, something important must be at risk. Ricky, thank you for saying that. It's important for everyone else that you tell it. You're not the only one who's been telling me that lately. You think that was the Mad Hatter in Alice in Wonderland? This Mad Hatter? What?
Could I hold it?
Yeah. Will you read one for me?
Sure.
Okay.
Which one do you want? Right or left?
Left. Give me the one on the left page.
Okay. Let me get one.
In order for you to change, something important must be at risk.
Yep. You can tell a lot about a person when you know what gives them comfort.
You can tell a lot about a person when you know what gives them comfort. Yeah, like it? Okay, my lovelies, I am going to post the replay for the rest of the reading for Illusions onto YouTube. Please go follow me on YouTube. Please go follow me for free over on Patreon or grab a membership level. All of the things that come with each membership level are all described under there. If you want to subscribe here, it's basically a tip jar. TikTok takes a good portion of what I make on here, so it's better if you want to support me, if you want to engage with any services I offer, group or private services. All of that stuff is listed over at Patreon. I'm still doing coaching by donation. I've set it up differently. It's in the shop, not in memberships over at Patreon. And like I said, I've got the Discord set up, so I will post something on the Patreon inviting everyone to the Discord. I might even set up a link here or something to help you guys to get to the link to the Discord as well. But that is, what book is that? This is the Messiah's Handbook. It's the accompanying book to the book Illusions that we just finished reading, Ricky. So yeah, go sign up, go follow me on Patreon, snag yourself a membership level if you want to get in on the shenanigans that are not on the lives, if you actually want to like engage and participate in the shenanigans, right? Awesome. Thank you, hon. Okay, my guys, my friends, I love you all so much. Look for the replay on YouTube. Go follow me on YouTube. Go follow me on Patreon. I will be live tomorrow morning for Bhakti Bites. We're practicing our Chanmukha Mukha Mudra. So the replay for the first meditation for Monday is on YouTube. If you miss tomorrow's at 10 a.m. Pacific time, it will also be posted to YouTube. Usually by the end of the day, I do my best to get there. If you guys have any questions about any of that, want to work directly with me, or want to join the CAYA Sangha, you can find info at Patreon, or you can also just send me a message and ask me questions. I like that too. Otherwise, if you want to join the Discord, like ASAP, feel free to send me a message and I can send you the link also. Awesome. Thank you, Ricky. You're awesome too. I love you guys. Have a great day. Enjoy your Tuesday.